Welcome aboard the Rusted Bus, taking pit stops to all things macabre, mystical, and paranormal.
The sky turns dark as clouds roll in and the wind gradually becomes violent, causing me to tighten my grip on the rail as we inched our way across the bridge. Hey, the weather's not looking so great. Maybe we should turn around now and come back on a different day? I called out to my friends ahead of me as we scaled the train track bridge heading towards our destination.
Are you kidding? We're almost there. I'm not backtracking when we're this close.
I agree with Mia. Besides, a little rain won't hurt.
I suppose, I mumbled as I looked down to the rushing rapids below when suddenly the bridge began to rumble.
Shit, train's coming. Hurry.
Alec exclaimed as we rushed to the other side, leaping off the bridge and behind the first shrub available that lined the tracks. The shrubbery shook all around us as the train rumbled past. We all stood up and continued on the dirt path up a hill, passing a huge and heavily graffitied "No Trespassing" sign as we made our way to the top. Wow, I exhaled as I took in the sight of the abused building. People really did a number on this place. I understand why they're so strict on trespassers, I said as I looked towards my friends.
Leave it to the arsonists to ruin all the fun.
The building was mostly vacant, only decaying ceilings and built-in appliances left to see. We approached the basement stairs, which only went halfway down before they had disintegrated away from damage.
Bummer.
What do you mean? It's a short jump down and easy to climb back up from.
Climb back up? Heck no. I'll pass.
Alec looked to me.
Okay, what about you, Kate?
Sorry. I think I'd rather pass on this one too.
No problem. You two can explore up ahead then. I'll just check out the basement solo. Catch back up with you guys in a bit.
Cool, see you soon, I replied as Mia and I waved goodbye and continued on through the building.
I made my way down what remained of the frail stairs, before a step broke beneath me, causing me to jump the rest of the way prematurely. I rolled upon landing at the bottom and groaned from the wipeout. Ugh! I stand up and dust myself off and look ahead into complete darkness. I slide my phone from my pocket, turning the light on as I begin slowly panning the room with it. Some broken furniture scattered throughout, mounds of dirt connecting the floor to the walls, slow drips of who knows what falling at random from above. I walk to the very back and find a stack of old posters that once lined the hospital walls. I fold one up and tuck it into my pocket as a souvenir, figuring that was the most interesting thing down here. I start to turn around when I hear something move behind me. I freeze in place. A chill creeps up the back of my neck as I take a deep breath and force myself to turn around, aggressively swinging my phone's light in front of me. I chuckle as a tension leaves my shoulders. Damn near gave me a heart attack, little guy. I smirk at the small black cat staring back at me. This isn't a place for a cutie like you. I start to approach the cat. Come here, little guy. Reaching my hand out, when suddenly my phone's light flickered off, and the room fell into pitch black. Fuck, I murmur, while fiddling with my phone in between my hands. Did it die? Wasn't it fully charged before we left? I asked myself in frustration, when I heard a soft meow. Meow. I looked towards where the cat was, struggling to focus my eyes in the darkness, when I could just barely make out the shape of a cat from the rest of the dark. I continued toward it when suddenly it appeared to be growing in size. I rubbed my eyes. Is the darkness playing tricks on me? When I reopened my eyes, it was now taller than me, quickly beginning to fill the room. I stumble backwards, still confused as what I'm seeing when I hear a low, earthy meow turn into a roar that echoed all around me. I covered my ears and fell to the ground in fear. The air turned ice cold as the void engulfed me.
Mia and I reached the end of the hall, entering a large room. There was a bathroom to the right I felt drawn to. I began to step inside, however, as soon as my foot crossed the threshold, I suddenly felt as if my face had been covered in spider webs, and I stumbled backwards, swatting around my head.
You okay over there?
Mia chuckled from behind me. Yeah, just hoping there's no spiders on me now.
Ew, that's exactly why I didn't want to be climbing around the basement.
Mia said as she turned away from the bathroom. After the feeling of webs was gone, I took a close look around the doorframe. Not a single trace of webs to be found. How strange. I had a strange feeling the room was off limits and stared at the tub full of broken porcelain from outside the doorway before I heard the wind howling from outside and rushed to the window in the center of the room. The trees were swaying violently in the wind as rain began pouring down. I knew we should have turned around earlier. How are we supposed to get back in the... I was cut off by a sharp pain in my side, followed by a clink sound by my foot. I looked down to see a chunk of porcelain from the bathtub. I look over towards Mia, who was between me and the bathroom. Well, did you throw this at me? That fucking hurt.
No, I swear.
Then who did, huh?
I don't know.
We both paused as our eyes followed the sound by the bathroom to another chunk of porcelain on the floor. We stared quietly until another chunk of porcelain tossed itself out of the bathroom. Then another, and another, until suddenly chunks of porcelain were flying into the room by the dozen. Without saying a word, we rushed out of the room and down the hall in unison. As we passed the basement, I yelled down for Alec. Alec, we gotta go!
No.
What are you? I stopped mid-protest to the sound of Mia screaming as she points back down the hallway. I looked to see a thick shadow stretching towards us, engulfing every room it passed. Without a second thought, I turned and booked it out of the building with Mia. As we exited the front doors, we entered the raging storm outside and didn't stop running until we made it back down to the bridge where we collapsed in the mud, catching our breath.
What about Alec?
Mia huffed. He said no. I can't go back there, I replied, feeling nauseous. He said no, however, something felt off, like it wasn't really him, but I just can't bring myself to go back. We made it back to our bikes and parted ways. I made my way home, sneaking past my parents and up to my bedroom, changing out of my drenched clothes before plopping in bed. I raised my phone and sent a text to Alec. Hope you made it home okay. You there? I could have sworn I saw the replying bubbles a few times, but I didn't receive a reply. I began to fall asleep when suddenly I felt the familiar pain in my side and hear that distinct clink sound. My eyes shot open as I felt my heart sink deep into my chest. I slowly sat up and turned to look around at the floor, letting out a sigh of relief to see nothing was there. Must just be in my head, I thought as I laid back down. Just as I closed my eyes, the room suddenly felt ice cold and I hear a faint sound come out from beneath my bed. Meow.
You wrote out the story. Now let's take a twisted drive through the inspiration. The truth is often stranger than fiction.
During the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a disease that plagued the United States. A disease that killed 300,000 people, maybe even more, due to deaths prior to doctors keeping track of the deceased. Towns would echo with the sounds of wet coughs and groans of the afflicted, from pains in the chest, because they had, at the time, the incurable consumption, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis became a severe problem throughout America and soon was named the consumption due to eating away at its victims. The disease would infect the lungs and slowly eat away at important vessels, sometimes even following the bloodstream into other parts of the body. It was harsh and ruthless, and with a life expectancy of 3 years left untreated, it had plenty time to spread. Those who were infected were isolated from loved ones and even shunned by communities, mostly living at local hospitals, but soon the epidemic became more than enough to crowd hospitals and something had to be done. In 1934, Glendale Hospital was built, solely dedicated to housing, treating, and finding a cure for patients of tuberculosis. The plot of land was made up of 216 acres with 23 buildings, each with their own purpose, including a children's hospital, adult hospital, and 2 dormitories for patients, along with underground tunnels that were used as walkways between buildings. For 16 years, patients would live their lives at Glendale, tending to various gardens and being treated with different trials and theories, until finally, a silver lining appeared on the dark clouds. In 1950, antibiotics became wildly available, and with the consumption finally being sated, Glendale population started to dwindle so much that in 1960 it was repurposed as a nursing home. But not every good tale ends happily. In 1982, Glendale was finally closed due to high levels of asbestos that harmed many remaining patients. And so, the hospital that was praised throughout Virginia, Maryland, and DC for treating many patients of tuberculosis, had its doors shut, never to reopen again. Its gardens wilted away, walls and ceilings crumbling, and the underground tunnels flooded. Glendale now rests upon its lonely, lonely hill.
It's time to hit the brakes and open the doors to discussion.
All right, welcome back everyone to the Rusted Bus. I'm your host, Mick, and this is your host,
M.
Today we're talking about Glendale and Henryton Hospital, specifically because both of them were for tuberculosis patients. But we're going to start with Henryton first because this is actually the inspiration for M's story.
Yeah, today's story was mostly inspired by Henryton, off of a trip I did when I was a teenager. I went with, I think, a group of like 6 to 8 people. It was a pretty big, I think it was one of the largest groups that I had
Yeah.
actually went with in a place. And a lot of the details were true. Like we did have to cross like a bridge that went over water with train tracks, and one of my friends did tell me that the conductor in particular, if they saw us along tracks, they're known for calling the police for trespassing. I did have a friend who said that she had been called on before by the train last time she'd seen, and by the time she got back to her car, there were police waiting for her,
Oh my
and
God.
she got a fine for
Oh, that
trespassing.
sucks.
So yeah, so we had to be very careful. And when we did start to hear the train come, we would all try to hide behind the nearest like shrubs or. So you didn't want to be caught out on the bridge. There was a specific bridge I remember that went over water, and you had that held just the train tracks. Yeah, you did not want to be caught out when the train was coming to be seen. But once you got past the bridge, I do remember like it was mainly like uphill. You go uphill, and Henryton was us at the top of the hill. It's a very, very big place, covers a lot of ground.
Oh yeah.
It's actually quite beautiful. We went on the roof a lot. I actually love going on the roofs of these buildings and just looking out.
Yeah.
The
To see the
view,
whole thing.
the view are pretty great. Like just over, it's all the trees because Henryton says it's located in Patapsco Valley State Park, actually, even though it's like Marriottsville, Maryland, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? That's apparently still Patapsco State Park. Apparently, is very huge.
God, how
I
big
just
is that
read
state
that.
park?
Yeah, I just read that off of the Maryland Archives. It said archives said it's on Patapsco State Park property. So when you're on the top, you just see tons of trees and really pretty. Um, Most of the building had already been vandalized when we went through it. I know that supposedly it had an auditorium at one part that was supposed to be very kind of spectacular to look at, but it had been burned down by arsonists.
Oh, great.
So yeah, I didn't get to see that sadly. Otherwise, that would have been something to write about, I heard. But yeah, it had a lot of burn marks around the doors and stuff. Some of the doors didn't have much left over, like Forest Haven or anything. It definitely got stripped out of a lot of stuff. Most of it was pretty normal until we went into this side building. It wasn't connected to the main hospital. And it looked almost like it would have been housing for maybe even like nurses or staff or something. It had
Oh,
like some
probably.
rooms
Like
with
a dorm or
bathrooms.
something.
And that's where one of my friends they did go down to the basement where the stairs were like burnt away halfway. So nobody else felt like, climbing
Yeah.
in and out of there. So he went down there and the rest of us had went in this room where I for some reason was drawn to the bathroom. I wanted to go look in this bathroom that was off to the right. But as soon as I stepped through the doorway, I felt like my face got covered with like spider webs, cobwebs or something. I
Yep.
felt that sticky
Like a veil.
yes. And so I immediately stepped backwards and started like dusting off, but I didn't see anything, and I didn't see any residue of webs anywhere. Like I looked around, I was confused because first I wanted to make sure there's no spider on me, but there was no evidence of even spider web so I just what I felt, and I just remember just feeling too grossed out to try stepping back in the bathroom. But I did stare at the tub for a bit where it was just kind of full of broken porcelain pieces. I don't know from where, if it came off the wall, like tile, if they had tiled walls at some point, or because the tub was full. Like the tub was not broken itself, but it had tons of broken like porcelain chunks inside of it. I just for some reason was staring at that. I don't know why, and then I was drawn to look out the window in the center of the room. So I turned around, was staring out the window, and when suddenly I felt something hit me on my side, my hip, right here. Right. Exactly right there. I felt something hit me kind of hard, and then I heard like the chink on the ground, and I looked down, and it was a chunk of porcelain from the bathtub. And there were two friends that were over towards that side. They were like in each other's arms, supposedly making out or, kissing, but
Yeah. Teenager stuff.
yeah, it's teenager stuff. I thought that one of them must have thrown it, though. Like they would have had to went in the bathroom somehow and got it, and then got back, back to the.
Yeah.
But regardless, both of them completely denied. Throw like they saying they were completely honest. They did not throw it. They didn't. They. I don't know if one of them saw it happen but they definitely heard it, and everyone was like, it seemed pretty weirded out. Like there was a vibe I could tell. And that's when one of them started to kind of yell in the bathroom. Kind of
great.
trying to, again, we talk about this every time. There's always somebody that tries to antagonize
Yeah.
spirits and stuff to try to get it to do something. So from what I remember, this was like years ago, but yes, he was crouched in front of the door, facing the bathroom door, and yelling about, do it again, do something. He do something again. And everybody had seen it. I had seen it. A piece of porcelain just so gently, but not like it like flew out the way I got hit, but just a very, very gentle, like just a like little toss, like just a chunk of porcelain, probably like this big. This is crystal, and it just kind of whoop, like came out of the bathroom and landed like a couple, like 2 feet in front of where he was crouched at. And it was a very gentle, just boop, and he just looked at it. Everyone was quiet, and they just looked at it, and I felt like we looked at it for like 5 seconds in silence, and then like simultaneously everyone just looked up, got up, and started rushing, like fast walking to the door. And our other friend was still in the basement, and none of us even bothered. Like it was quiet. Nobody said anything. I don't even know how I think he just happened to be coming up at the same time, and just everyone was just very quiet, speed walking to the door to get out. And we literally made it all the way out of the building, all the way down to the footpath, like back onto the road, like before anyone said a word. And the first person to say a word was my brother, who was with me, who said specifically, like, I'm surprised you're not freaking out, because you were the one that got hit by porcelain first. And in my mind, I was 100% like beyond freaking out, and I did not need the comment to remind me.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So that was like the most, I think, like intense kind of interaction that it's one of those situations. Years later, I still think about it, and often I still wonder if someone in that group was playing a prank. But like my brother had went and asked, because a lot of those people were his close friends. He said he'd went even years later and asked, like, "Are you sure? Like none of you guys were just trying to pull something?" And they're like, what would we gain by lying still, like this far, like years later, like from a prank, like everyone still completely says they're that really happened. Everyone was there. They all saw it. Everyone says like that they promised nobody was pulling a prank, that it was real. And like that's probably like the most, like I said, the most ghost activity like I think I've ever seen. And the fact that there's multiple witnesses, I think, makes it pretty
definitely helps. You know you're not insane.
Yes, because I said even in my mind, I still wonder if I'm making it up. If I, like, there's no way I saw that. But like I said, there's multiple witnesses. I still go back. I went 2 years later, asked them about it, and they all remember the same way. And everyone says that they had nothing to do with it. It was real. So that's what I decided to base today's story on, was that experience. And of course I dramatized it, and as Mick said, like, gave the cat from the first story some justice. All these stories are pretty open-ended because I don't know how to write. I'm very new at writing stories, as hopefully I'll get better. I could do with taking some writing classes, but we just thought it would be fun. We thought it would be fun to leave the stories open-ended, and maybe if we get enough stories, I'll publish them later, and we'll add some secret endings if people prefer to have a solid ending. We can write some endings in later. But I just thought today's story, yeah, would be fun to base it off that experience, and we were going to make it some sort of cat cat type demon
Uh-huh.
because that's fun. That kind of swallowed people in its shadows. We can write more later if people actually like these stories. I don't expect much if people I don't expect people to really like them or not,
I
but
I always love them. I
if
get excited when you send me, "Oh, this is the story for today's episode." I'm like, "Oh, heck yeah!" I get excited.
if we get some positive feedback and people would like I said, more like closed endings and longer stories, and we'll work on that. We'll get that out there. Um, but Keith or Mick, gosh darn it, Mick. Uh, am I giving away your Clark Kent secret identity?
Clark Kent.
Uh, During his deep dive, he has went over
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you went over both Henryton, and we decided to include the history of Glendale because both of these hospitals, like as you said, were tuberculosis hospitals
Uh-huh.
in
Yep.
Maryland. So the Henryton, like I said, that's the one I went to, and that was my experience there. But we also went to Glendale together
Uh-huh.
years ago again. But and
Yeah, I
Mick
gave
can, I was just say you can tell some of your experience because I didn't have too
yeah.
much experience there, but you did.
So jumping back to Henryton real quick. I actually did do a little bit of research on that. I put a little bit of it in a deep dive. Most of it's on Glendale because unfortunately, Henryton doesn't have much of a paranormal history, which is weird that like yeah, that's where your experience was at. But Henryton was actually one of the very first hospitals to treat African Americans back in 1922. It didn't become an actual hospital until 1963, and then they finally closed in like 1985 because they didn't have enough patients. And then, as you mentioned, from like the burn marks, it had many like people who were vandalizing it, and it had like really big fires in like 2007, 11, and the biggest one was 2012. That one like burnt away the whole entire roof, like the
Yeah,
whole roof and like the upper floor was just burnt away.
it's not there anymore, right?
No, yeah,
Yeah,
20
they ended up
May 2014, they finally decided to demolish it for good.
demolished.
So unfortunately, you guys can't explore it. Even if you did, though, apparently it was actually very heavily guarded.
I,
But you
I
guys
did.
got in there,
Uh,
yeah,
the only warning I was given was watch out for that train when that train comes by. That the
yeah.
conductor in there will call the police on you for being back
But yeah,
there.
unfortunately, it is gone. But I mean, you can always explore the ruins if you want to. Most of the time, it's the land that has
That
the
holds
energy in it.
energy. Yeah.
But so talking about switching over to Glendale. So Glendale is where I had one of my experiences at that still kind of creeps me out to this day. We went there. It was us and three of our friends. I think it was like five of us.
Yes.
And
Yeah. I think so.
it was during the day, so it was still like sunny and everything. And we got up near the top floor. And I was trying to find my one friend, and he walks off and explores by himself, which is fine, as long as you're safe about it. And I thought he was still one floor below us, so I went down there trying to find him, and I searched everywhere, and I kept on hearing walking, like there was someone walking around, and it's very distinct because there's so much like rubble on the floor that you hear people stepping. It's unmistakable. So I was trying to follow these footsteps, following him to each room, still couldn't find him. And then so finally I came out onto the little balcony and I looked up to where M and our other friends were at. I was like, hey, have you seen, so and so? And then here he is, one floor above them, pokes his head out. And he's like, I'm up here. And so I realized that I'm down here on the floor by myself, following these phantom footsteps just around these rooms. That was one of the creepiest ones for me. But
So other than that, I don't think there was much of a vibe there.
no,
You didn't have
Glendale was
that type
actually
of feeling.
pretty
It's pretty
peaceful.
peaceful. That's the one that they closed down because I read it was mostly because of asbestos having really
Yeah,
bad
and we
asbestos.
walked around there so casually with no
Yeah,
mask, no.
we went through the freaking attic and the
Uh-huh.
ceiling.
Yes, definitely. Do your research. Once again, we never condone you guys going through these places because they're always guarded and
And pretty dangerous.
yeah, it's very dangerous.
Me and Mick have been through quite a bunch of random abandoned houses, and my foot had fell through the deck on one of them before when we.
Yes. So
Uh,
we never fully condone it, but if you do, please do your research because most of the time these old buildings have lead, they have asbestos. So if you're gonna do it safe.
yes.
That's all we recommend is please do it safe.
Bring mask, proper mask.
Oh yeah.
And watch for structural uh damage and integrity. Like I said, we jumped onto a wood deck that was completely rotted through, and I don't know how you made it off first, and when I got on, my leg went straight through the deck in a spot, and plus like the broken glass, because I think I got a cut on my leg
Yeah,
going through
unfortunately you got the worst of it.
So, yeah,
Yeah, so
I-
so Glendale is still there. If like I said, we don't condone it, but we're not going to stop you either. But Glendale's still there. It is still guarded. Recommend maybe asking for permission before you just jump in there. But whatever happens happens. But like we just said, it does have a lot of asbestos. Through the deep dive, I was talking about the tunnels, and they had these really long, cool tunnels that was connecting the dorms to like the main hospital. And this would help the patients get around a lot faster. Well, unfortunately, those things are flooded. So if you want to go and see like the tunnels, unfortunately, they are gone. Um, I didn't really see any much of the garden up top on the rooftops, but I saw where there could have been gardens because apparently a lot of patients had like these big beautiful gardens, and I actually found one of the pictures had like some of the shrubbery there, but that's probably all gone. But it is like you mentioned before, from the rooftops, it's gorgeous to
a
just
really
look
nice
around. It's beautiful.
view of just treetops and.
But yeah, if just please be safe if you guys go. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up there. Funny enough, from your story talking about the tile being thrown at you, the next episode that you're gonna talk about poltergeist a little bit. So kind of gonna continue that topic. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. Thanks for joining us on the Rusted Bus.
See you next stop.
See you next time. You guys have a good one.
Bye.
It looks like we've reached the end of the road for now. Thanks for hopping on and rolling with us through the twists and turns. If you enjoyed the ride, please subscribe and share.